Greetings. I guess something I noticed that's interesting is I just started this video. It's 11:17, so I see 111. I just looked at it as I started. I don't do that stupid work of trying something that's doing evil. That's not believing in the Father, working in spirit, walking in the Spirit. And I also noticed, as he has shown so many different things, even through numbers at the right time, that within a day, within a few hours, actually, I don't know exactly the hours, but within a day easily, I think within 12 hours, it could be within 10 hours or 5, that the last video I did has Acts 1:11 in it, and that's because that's what came to mind, and then I found out it's 1:11, and that's an interesting thing with the numbers and 11 and 1:11 and 1:1, but the subscriber count is 1:11 out of all the times within a few hours of that last video. 1:11 Acts 1:11, the subscriber count became 1:11. But these are signs for believers. They're not signs for unbelievers, because we know what's going on in spirit, in our mind, in our heart, and seeing different things throughout any given day. It's for whoever it's given to see, for anyone who has eyes to see and ears to hear. Even though it's not about that, and it's the mind and heart is not about that wicked thing in numbers like this. Just trusting that the Father will work out whatever needs to be worked out. I don't have to worry about it. And when we ask him, he does give, and he builds us up to do the right thing, which is not to do things for corrupt, wicked intentions. And so then I'm not worried about numbers and things like that, like with masses, because I know that whoever loves the Father and loves Messiah will be hated by this world with people's heart, which means they don't worship you. Worshipping someone is through wickedness, through delusion and confusion and blinding. It's worshiping an image, the person, and the image of the beast, which is connected to all kinds of things. But worshiping the image, idols that people create, and the images that they sell and want others to believe about self, that's what's worship. But enemies do not worship Messiah and his people. They hate with the vicious hatred in their heart true believers. And this is what we read continually all through his word. We can put up the scriptures that say what I'm saying. This is the truth. They hate. They want to kill, steal, and destroy. That's the devil's works. They have no truth, no love in them at all. But it's not about the outward. It's not about sounding good and saying right words, as the enemy can and does do all day long. That's what he tries to do, is masquerade as a believer. Everyone should be aware that that's what everyone's already doing. And some are better at it, some less, some to take in these amount of people, and some to take a different amount that doesn't like what that image is. This is the carnal delusion that this world's always been in. And more evidence and proof of this is the tree of life. What the guarding of the tree of life, what the Father is not allowing is Adam to literally live forever, because that's literally not the meaning. That's not the problem. That's not the goal. That's not what he cares about. That's like already a given, that the Father can give us life forever, literally. But the heart is sick and wicked. Therefore, if Adam continues to eat from the tree of life, he lives continually in a wicked state with a wicked, deceitful heart that literally breaks all his laws in the heart, all of them. He never keeps, you shall not commit adultery. He never keeps, you shall not lie. Never keeps, you shall not envy. Never keeps anything which is all obedience to the Father, but breaks whatever he says not to do, or to do and not do it. Don't eat from this. He breaks it, and she breaks it. All creation breaks his voice. They can't obey him. So then it would be a death continually. He would live forever, literally, with a sick, perverted heart that doesn't love the Father but loves the devil and loves carnality and the flesh and everything that's wicked with the heart. This is why the tree of life is guarded. And the letters, the outward, that wasn't the issue. What it means spiritually to give us life, the tree of life. That's the heart of it, because this is touching the heart now. This is changing the lawlessness of the heart into lawful, learning as Messiah teaches us how to keep the commandments as Moses did, in the heart and not the letters, with stone only. And if someone keeps the literal letters, even perfectly, they will look good if you keep them for a show, which doesn't have anything to do with what you do secretly, because when no one's around, no one sees the image. That means you can sin all the time in the dark and all that stuff too. That's something about the carnal man. That's what he does. As long as he looks good in the public, that's what he really literally believes in his heart, that that's good. So only keeping the commandments on stone with letters only can make someone look good at best. That's all it can do at the best. If you break the letters, you literally murder, you literally commit adultery, you literally lie, you literally look bad all the time. It looks bad. So then the image of the beast is looking good, which is actually to keep the commandments according to the letters. Even without like being religious, man was already trying to do that. He tries to make himself look good. The best that can do is just have an outwardly appearance of, I wear nice clothes, therefore I'm righteous because I look good. That's it. That's sick. That's not what the Father wants. He wants a heart towards the Father, towards himself. So the best keeping the commandments with the letters cut off all by itself, as Moses taught, as an example of the mediator between, these are amazing things to me. The best someone can do with only keeping the letters without a heart is looking good. That's it. That's all the Israelites ever achieved. They never had a heart. That's the revelation. And those that kept the commandments kept the letters. Those that didn't, they broke it. That's how much of a beast mankind is in. Now to be this after Messiah is to be religious, is to be the same wickedness, because that's not what's looked at. In times past, the Father winked at sin. No, he's not doing the devil's wink out of that corrupt intention from wickedness. He winked at sin in times past because the heart wasn't truly being judged or looked at in this way. But the natural man thinks he knows. That's the whole delusion. Natural Israel thinks it knows, and he allows them to think they know. Even his own people, Jerusalem, his remnant, the old covenant saints and not the many called, the best someone can do is look good. They still didn't have a heart, because Messiah came to fulfill the law, meaning it never was. This is the amazing thing, a huge thing. This is why something greater has come through Messiah instead of Moses. The kingdom of heaven, something much greater has come, way greater, because the hard things were never kept or learned. Adam never knew. Eve never knew what good or evil actually was, but the carnal man thinks he knows. That is the deception. And we could see that all over his word. All over his word, that man thinks he knows what righteousness is. It's the same today as it always has been. He thinks he knows when he reads the letters and leans on his own understanding and has zero heart towards the Father, doesn't worship the Father, does not seek him with the heart, and doesn't ask him anything. He will read letters with his own understanding, steal understanding, because the devil can only steal, kill, and destroy. Create its own doctrine it thinks it's its own. Read A.E. Knox books, read someone's books, take their doctrine, steal it, and make it look like it's their own so that they can be wise and worshipped by man. That's what false prophets' work is continually, all of them. That's why they're called false prophets. They're not of the Father. False prophets never hear from the Father. They never do what he commands. They don't hear for him. They just come in his name. They're a wolf in sheep's clothing. The deception and war is spiritual, not natural. All the enemy has to do through people, even, is get someone to sin in the heart, and whatever that means. That's it. All the enemy has to do is get someone to continually lust and commit adultery in the heart, for example. That's all the enemy has to do, is get us to do one thing continually. And I'm just saying that to try to bring out like the spiritual war versus natural, because that's that's the death it will produce in us, is whatever adultery is, for example, and what it truly is in our mind, in the heart. Doing that and completing that, even without going all the way fully, literally, will cause a death. And so then, if someone's not being taught by Messiah, our mediator, the only true teacher, Father and Messiah are one, and the body are one. The three are one in spirit, which has nothing to do with the Trinity. Then we'll be taught by our Messiah on how to keep the commandments in the heart and fulfill it as he fulfilled it, and become the Father's word. Literally become spiritually as Messiah was, becoming his very own word. That's the word manifested in our flesh. Ooh, prideful. I could see the church world screaming, twisting, distorting, because they only left that for God. That's why Satan has this doctrine that the literal word became the literal flesh, and that's all it means, some carnal thing. It has nothing to do with what it means to becoming his word and fulfilling the law and commandments, his word, all of it, and becoming it, living his living words. It has nothing to do with that. It's some Trinity pagan God doctrine that always existed, with trinities and false gods, many so-called gods, like we read. The apostle says that because the scriptures are teaching it constantly. So many false gods that the Israelites constantly want to worship, build themselves, build their own gods. You have to build your own gods. That's shown in the natural. If the natural is true, that means the spiritual is something like it, meaning if you build your own gods. To have other gods back then, when only the natural is revealed, that's it. To have other gods means you had to build them. You had to. And then you can connect and represent things like, this is the God of this or that. That's a spiritual connection. But all the nations built their own gods, including Jerusalem, built their golden calf. Spiritually now, the wickedness of what we read there, the actual sin and pride, is building our own gods in the heart spiritually. And because they're blind, mankind's blind, he's just going to say he doesn't do this. He's going to say, if there's no golden calf present, that means he's not doing it. It's a lie, because those are the letters only. That's not what the law means. You can't write down. That's how you would write it down. That's the picture. That's the only way to show something with letters and image on spiritual and visible things that are very real. You need a picture, and you need the letters to bring the perfect picture. So then the natural picture of something, building our own gods, that's what it looks like spiritually. You have to build your own gods. It's a foundation. That's where you start, at the bottom, foundation, with the commandments. Murder, literal murder, that's what it looks like manifested. That's what murder is in the heart, but that's what it looks like if you do it physically. You can't write down what spiritual murder is. Well, you can, and it's what we read, which is going to be letters, which is always connected to only the natural. And the natural man reads the letters and only sees the natural, because the spiritual things must be given, or else he doesn't have it. They must be asking and seeking the Creator with all their heart, or else they'll never see it. That's what letters kill mean, and the religions are so blind they can't see. It's astonishing. It's a hissing. It's shameful. It's mind-numbing how blind it is. The Most High does not dwell in temples made with hands. How does he show his spirit dwelling in us, in our body, as we read that you are the temple of the living Elohim? He shows us with the letters in scripture, his word, that's true. that his presence, how he manifests, just a little part of him, his presence, glory in the literal physical temple. That's the truth. That's his word right there. Those words are true. They're incredibly important. It's incredibly important to be set apart, or else one little thing wrong, take off your sandals, do this, don't, you die. Boom, death, and that death is a spiritual death. And because there's a difference with spiritual and natural in that you can be killed, spiritually, you can be killed over and over again. So that's how something about the spiritual is different than the natural death or literal death, is that you can be killed over and over again, and it's going to be for a hurt, it's going to be for a death, it's going to grieve the spirit, which will feel like death when we break any given commandment in the heart. Once we have some kind of knowledge of it, then it becomes sin to break it. If we have zero knowledge of it, we have to be built up to it, to the knowledge. Then we start working whatever that knowledge is, like works, keeping it. But if someone truly doesn't know, it's not a sin in the same way compared to someone that knows under Messiah's favor. Outside of his favor, it's just always death and condemnation, because there's no belief yet, and there's no spirit of the Father and Messiah in someone in unbelief. And so it's amazing what the Father did, because the letters only can read and put a natural understanding with our own selves without the Father for all of us. I've never learned anything myself, zero, and never will. But what people won't believe is that the Father gives us truth and power to do his will. And that's just what's going to be, we just know that's going to be true. But the truth is, we don't know anything. We never do in this way. I never learn anything of myself, ever. And it is frustrating. I've battled with it, but you get over it. It gets better on accepting that truth. And then we can even get tricked by getting things from the Father as like a struggle, where we really we're given things. And then we it starts going in a direction like, it's my own, I could do this, and then you have to fight that off too. It's crazy how much sin there is to overcome. And it's just a constant growth like that, day by day. Because like that temptation is like going back to pride, but going back to, it comes from me, self, God, pride in this way, because we're not the creator. To be anything like the creator in our mind is blasphemy, because we're not the creator. That's the reality. And if we do his will, the good thing would come to those that want the false version of it, like rising up in pride, wanting fame, wanting strength, wanting might. If we would be humble and do his will, he lifts us up the true way. And the thing that people want so badly, the real way, the real thing, is actually going to come, and the tables will flip. That's our belief. Because Messiah is not going to be riding like even the church world has said, lowly on a donkey as the first time. Neither will his people. But mankind, even for us, it's like hard to imagine until he starts showing us how it's possible. How do you have all this and not sin? There's a way. That's like that salvation at the end, where it's perfected, where you can be risen up, but it's all through good, all through truth, which is like incomprehensible, to unbelievers. Like, how do you do that? You have to be built up to it to even remotely see some of it. So then someone that's humble, someone that's being lifted up by the Father, they will be seen as prideful, because what they're looking at is actual strength, is actual lifting up the true way, which is always through actual, real, whatever humble is, humble. And because someone's void of that real thing, they attack it as pride. That's all they know is actual pride. So when they see the good thing, when they see those spiritual good works of light the Father gives us. As the Messiah said, let your light shine, let the good work shine. Through truth, true humble, it's always going to sound quickly like evil to someone in darkness, like let your light shine. And what is that? Prideful, go and show off. See, they don't see a way for the good ways, for the good works, for the changing that he's giving us. The unbeliever doesn't see a way to do it without evil, because he only knows evil for real, spiritually, in the heart, and only can talk about the evil he does. So then the foolishness of this world, the wisdom of this world that he made foolish, that we got to come out of continually, is that when someone attacks good, they can't do it without condemning themselves. I see this in my mind. I see it in spirit. It cannot be done. And if someone's not seeing, they should ask how this is true, because it can't be done. Once he shows us, it's like clear. That means for us too. If I do some kind of evil towards someone, I just condemn myself. That's what it's going to be, hypocrisy. So it's like a real narrow, perfect way and path. It's really narrow. Truly is. But he gives us to do the impossible thing. That's like we just acknowledge it. The bottom is acknowledging it with the heart, whatever that is, and letting go of whatever it's hanging on to for anything. Could be anything, whatever someone's struggling with. You just acknowledge. That's the bottom, is acknowledging we can't do what's required. Then he gives us to do it. He makes a way. That's the miracle. So then we're doing the impossible. So when someone's doing the impossible in the world and shining, darkened man will see you doing the impossible. It's incredibly prideful to them when they don't even realize how much of a tribulation it is just to start doing something right. They have no clue what it takes and how much humbling and severe beating down to the dust it takes to be doing whatever this good thing is. It takes an incredible amount of patience and suffering, tribulation, with joy and everything else too. But they both exist. It's never one thing. And so then that's how it's going to look like. Messiah's like he is the perfect example. He's incredibly offensive to darkness. He's doing the Father's will. He hears him. He sees him. He's speaking out of hearing the Father. That's how connected he is to the Father as our perfect example. That's the goal for a believer, to get better, go towards this perfection, this direction, where every thought and will is being subjected through the Father and asked. It's like, no, I'm not doing whatever the perfect thing is. I'm finding out constantly. That's the truth. I'm not doing whatever the perfect thing is, whatever that is. I'm not there yet. I don't even know what I don't know, so you start seeing unbelief where it was like you didn't know any better. But now if you see something, you could see how that work before was not a perfect trust in the Father. And that's just for someone to see along the way, because before when we didn't see it, there's nothing to talk about on the specific thing when we don't see it. But that's what it is. It's like the faith has to be built up to actually believe he's going to be with us for everything, and he can easily feed the birds, that don't store up. And so then how much more valuable Messiah's teaching than many birds or ravens, whatever birds, much more valuable than many of them. And he gives an example. They don't store things up, but they still get fed. So that's how the Father works in us. That's the perfect belief that needs to be worked up to. It's not going to be there perfectly right from the start. And yet we wouldn't say go in the other direction, make an excuse. It's like someone that starts building a house, and then this is the stupidity of not believing in his favor and using it for a license to sin. Here's the picture that he just gave me. You start building a foundation for a house and say, it's the second, third floor of this house won't be complete fully for quite a while. So then you just dump the foundation and start breaking it, start attacking it, start destroying the foundation, because it's not going to be done in 1 minute, in 1 day. This is pretty stupid. That means the house will never be done. Just that's the mindset of the builders. That was a great picture, I think. I mean, that's how I see the picture that he gave me on the spiritual things, the heart, what it does. Because the Father always gives the perfect things. It doesn't come from us. We're stupid. We don't know anything. That's the truth. Not afraid to say it. Because we lean not on our own understanding. It's like, when is that not true? When is that a lie? Start leaning on our own understanding. Where's the scripture that says that? To lean not on our own understanding. But natural Israel didn't know what that meant. That's what the blinding is. They're not even aware of all his words, so many different scriptures. They're just not even aware of it. He just thinks he knows constantly. Doesn't care about his word, doesn't care about living it, doesn't care about not contradicting any of it. This sounds impossible. Well, they will say it's impossible. It is. What they don't believe is that the Father gives us the impossible thing, not to contradict his word. They don't put their trust and belief in him. They won't receive that. They won't be able to ever do that work. They'll always have to contradict his word. It is impossible. But they use that. See, when someone says something like that or thinks that, it's speaking out of like pride and insecurity, selfishness, and attacking, wanting to destroy the good thing. It's speaking out of like wanting it not to be true. That's not good. That's real bad. And I do read in scripture somewhere, it's like really bad or really good, like utterly good or utterly bad. Those are like the two directions. It's becoming one of those two things. And there's so many different scriptures that line up spiritually, and one of them is Messiah's teaching that whatever little someone has, it's taken from him. It means that they end up with nothing, or whatever someone has, more is given so that they have an abundance. That's the direction. Either nothing at the end, or everything, going in those two directions only. Closer or further away. And his word, what it also does is drive many peoples away. It has to do that. If we do what's right, it will do that. We don't have to want to do that. We're not supposed to want to do that with intention. If we do what's right, that's what it will do as a result of doing what's right. The difference between those two things is spiritual. It can't be seen physically with the physical eye, because so often they look identical for an image. So all someone has to say is, "You're lying." That's it. It doesn't matter what someone says, as long as someone, a believer, knows they're not lying to the Father and their conscience is clear and that they're not playing games. But to unbelievers, they don't care about that. They'll just say the same thing. Yep, I swear my conscience is clear. They play a game like that, like they can mock the Creator. You can't do that. You can't do that without getting punished for it, without getting blinded for it. So then a proper fear sets in. We don't play these games. It better be true. It better be right. If someone's going to say something, anything to anyone, better not be a lie, and we'll get caught. That's what we repent for. It's like you don't want to, and the old man's so bad. That's what gets revealed, and then we repent, and then it gets cut off a little bit. It's a tribulation. Spiritual, it's shaking inside, it's thundering. Heavens are shaking inside. It feels like, it looks like that. It's not to say there's no end fulfillment for the creation. I don't deny any of that, but that's not very important at all compared to the true spiritual things in spirit. Worshiping the Father in spirit and in truth right now. That's what's important for every believer now, today. Because, doing the whole tomorrow thing, the Father can't be mocked. Someone does that, it's a promise that it's going to be another day. When that day comes, it's going to be another day. It's a punishment. It really is. And when someone starts one sin, it's a promise that they're going to continue in it and do more. It's going to lead to other sins, and this is how it works. You have to watch out. This judgment's so powerful and consistent, but the world tries to hide this judgment. It creates categories, names for everything. It lies and says, I'm doing this because I want to hide that it's actually in slavery to something. It's always hiding that whatever truth is. It's amazing, It's the person doing whatever they're doing in the delusion literally believes their lie, that they chose it and are doing it for the reasons they say they are. It's a lie if they're in delusion. It can't be true. And people will say it, and that's what we should expect. It's so bad we have to check ourselves constantly whether we're doing that, whether it's a delusion or a blinding or partiality in all things, not to be partial. I don't know of anything that says, don't be partial, but it's okay to be partial in 50% of all things. The other 50%, it's not okay. It's nonsense with the Father. It's evil. So then there's so many ways people are partial. They don't see it. One simple, very simple example, and it goes way deeper than this, way deeper. But something simple to see is like people out there that say, if you pay me, I'll put you in priority for answering your questions on things of Scripture. It's just a very simple one to see. If that's not seen at all, what on earth is the heart doing daily? Because that's a pretty simple, lower, easier thing to see. That means it's not doing the higher things it can't. That's like saying it's like a corrupt foundation at the bottom, but now above it's perfect and not corrupt. It's not possible. It takes more work, takes higher building, takes at least a good foundation for the other thing not to be corrupt and built right. And they rejected the cornerstone. They rejected Messiah. The builders rejected. They're supposed to be building a house, a spiritual house. They rejected the foundation. Therefore, that is the death. It doesn't get worse than that. They killed him, So to reject the cornerstone to the foundation, now there is nothing. There's zero. It's just in death on our own to reject Messiah, the cornerstone, of which all things, like we have these scriptures on building. They're in there. And that's why the apostle says, likening himself to a wise master builder, and things get built on it, and the things no good are burned out. They don't remain, So in that, when a house is being built, there's all kinds of different things. We read that for a reason, to make sure we're not doing that. And if we do some of this, it'll be suffering some kind of loss, even now. It's not like this doesn't apply now. It does. All his word applies now. We can't imagine how it'll apply to come. I mean, who can imagine that? Seems like a pretty frightening thing to me. But I do read, that's a frightening thing, fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living Creator, Elohim. And there's no escape from him, because, love never fails. So the kids must be punished, must be judged, because the Father won't fail. They might as well be in everlasting chains, mankind, until that day, where there's basically no escape from the judgment. And that also for believers too. But if someone overcomes, they'll be told that they were good and faithful servants instead of wicked. One or the other. There's like, where is that 50-50 thing where you're like, yeah, you were half wicked, half good servant. One or the other. That's where it's leading to. So I read redeem the time, like it's like connected with numbering our days, where you spiritually plan, not carnally, but like spiritually. You know and see and accept this, and their days are numbered. Redeem the time. Plan out spiritually with the heart, which is to do the Father's will, which is to follow Messiah and not our own. It looks different than carnally planning ahead, months and years ahead. It's two different things. To do the natural thing like that continually, like the way the world does it, is to be breaking something in the heart for sure, continually. What plans, and once one simple teaching is somewhat seen and understood, how can we contradict it? It's like, you can't. If the Spirit moves us like the wind blows, then how does someone know all the different directions and ways the wind is going to blow 5 years from now, including every second of every day? It's going to go left here this time, it's going to go right, it's going to go back now. And then 5 years planning that. How on earth could someone know that? That's pretty prideful. But see, the thing is, the Father will allow someone he will give them enough proof, which is a delusion, a blinding, so that someone can believe the lie that they can actually plan and do that 5 years in this kind of way like that from now. And I'm trying to contrast just unbelief and not seeking to do his will versus seeking to do his will. And he just moves us as we go. It's an abomination to start seeing the truth in the true way. It's like, we start living in reality and saying, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I literally don't know. Don't know what a year, that's even more of an abomination to go a year out. 5 years is even worse. One day out, let alone 1 year or 5 years out. I have no clue. That's to live in reality. To have a clue is to live in a delusion where someone's given just enough proof in their mind so that they believe a literal lie and can be judged. And then they get harder and harder. And it's going to come with all the blinding, all the confusion, being lost spiritually, not knowing where you come from or where you go. And that'll be the unbeliever. That's what they think, that it's like some kind of free will and and all these things. It's a delusion. It's not real. That's how it's understood. It can be done, but only in a delusion. To live in truth and reality and clarity with sight is to not know with so many things. That's the truth. By not knowing, we know. By not knowing by not knowing where the wind's going to blow next, we can know where we come from or where we go, because we go with it continually day by day. There's no point we break that if you see the perfect picture. And by not knowing, we know, because you just get moved. And the Father moves the little leaf, and the wind blows, and the leaf doesn't know where it's going next, but because it's going with the wind, it always knows that it's going in the right direction. It is simple once it's seen. But see, rebellion doesn't like not knowing. Doesn't like that in the heart. He doesn't like not knowing in this kind of way at all. He likes knowing instantly. Boom, done. I know good and evil, and I know everything. That's what the heart likes. It needs to die. The clay doesn't get to talk like that without punishment. The clay gets formed by the Creator, whether for a vessel of honor or dishonor. In fact, the dishonorable clays are speaking a pretty shameful thing, because they're being formed by the Creator to be who and what they are while they think they're doing it. It's no reality. They're formed that way so that he can have mercy on all, because he's working out his crazy plan. It's too big, too grand for mankind to comprehend, like how the Father must comprehend it and see it. But we can see whatever he gives us to see, which is that all the evil's working out for some kind of good. But that faith has to be so real. It goes beyond death. And man does not have that kind of faith, so he has to live for today and take what he has right now while he can. because in his heart he doesn't believe in anything to come. Works of darkness, seeking lots of money, jet planes. These people are just incredibly obvious. They're obvious to enemies. Enemies expose them, that they don't believe in anything to come. Their works prove it continually, that they believe in nothing to come, because they're desperately trying to collect as much as they can every day. And that's just an obvious picture to connect with the heart, what the heart's doing. The heart can do that and not have nearly as much goods. The heart can do that with much or little. It can still hope and want that and do that still without having all that. That's the important thing. But when it's like real obvious like that, like man has such a big heart that he desperately going out to save people. He needs to get there quicker, and jets, might make someone choke, start busting out in laughter once some evil is actually seen. It's not true. It's monstrous. It's not what they're doing. They're fulfilling our Messiah's words more perfectly today than any other generation and generations. Like today, it's even more perfect than 100 years ago. But the heart's always been the same. But look at it's getting worse. They travel land and sea. Yeah, we can travel land and sea now, unlike any other time. Like, 100, 500 years ago, traveling land and sea. But look how much quicker it is now. Travel land and sea to make one convert. And when he's converted, as Messiah doesn't deny that people are converted into religion and whatever they're being converted to. When he's converted, he's made twice the son of Gehenna as themselves, as the one that converts them. They converted them into death and judgment, twice the sons of Gehenna as themselves. That's death. That's not a good work. That means they don't save people. We don't save anyone, and yet there is a way where we can say that through the true way, like the apostle makes an example. How will you save your wife? How do you know for sure? Once again, you don't know. Or your husband. How do you know if you won't? He's speaking out of truth, out of already knowing and speaking out of truth on what that means. He's not doing the literal saving, nor does he mean that at all. But you can talk like that when we have truth and know where it's coming from, understanding it through truth. That we don't do the actual adding the increase. The same apostle said, who are we? The Father adds the increase. We just throw water, seed. We don't do that work. We don't make it sprout and come alive. We don't give them the Spirit. We don't actually do that power and work. But we do. He works through us. So it's a pretty big deal. It's connected. To disconnect it is to break everything. He works through us to do his will, right through us, like a person rides a donkey to do the work field. The donkey's doing work, but it's because of the one that's in control, that's planning it out and doing this and planning it out. I mean, it's a natural picture. It's always going to lack compared to whatever the true perfect spiritual thing is, but it's a picture. Because the heavenly things are greater, way greater than its natural picture. And this way it always lacks, but it's still, there's true pictures with everything. Church world goes crazy when it sees branches falling off and men throw it and burn it in hellfire. That means that a branch is broken off. It starts dying right away. It starts dying, process of drying up and dying. And then people look at it and go, "Ooh, this is good for fire." They don't realize how blind man is. He says, "I'm good for fire. I'm going to burn myself. I'm going to pull out my weeds in my front yard." He pulls himself out. Doesn't realize it. He's not doing that to himself, not in his mind, but for those that can see. We can see that that's mankind pulling himself out. Doesn't like weeds. What do they think is spiritually being sown the most by the enemy? Weeds. Spiritual weeds on the Father's earth. Things grow from the earth, whether good or evil. And we don't harvest it in this way until there's a separation being worked out. And this is just true like in every generation until that end, until that harvest. Don't pull it out. You might pull out some good ones too. So this great harvest is, it's about the kingdom, about what peoples, what works we did, of him or not of him. And we read not to mix a bunch of seeds, mix it all in one, mix a bunch of things. We read not to mix with like there's clothing, there's different examples of this mixing and what it means and represents heavenly things. If it's true naturally, if it's a sin naturally, how much greater the heavenly? If it's being done naturally, it's being done heavenly in the heart, for sure, because it takes to break it in the heart to do the natural. But the way Messiah gives us standing and the way the Father teaches us the laws in the heart, as we start learning it, then it starts becoming one. It doesn't work the other way around, where you just say, I read this, and you just like do everything. I'm perfect now. And those that don't do this, the whole thing is messed up. It's evil. The laws have to be taught. Once the heavenly thing is being kept, that is the real thing. Now there is a connection to the natural. There's a connection, but it's done the Father's way, not man's way. Not with the letters like he thinks, and then puts heavy yokes and burdens on people spiritually and expectations and perfection on them as if he's perfect already. He does that with the heart a lot. It's the Wizard of Oz is a great picture on what mankind does without the Father. He makes himself into something great and mighty that never actually is. It's astonishing when the Father starts giving us truth, real things, that those images, like, wow, they are not wise and smart. It was a sorcery. It was a great blasphemous image created by someone to make themselves look like Wizard of Oz. When you destroy this false image through truth, we find a weak, beggarly man that needs help just like everyone else, that's cowardly and shaking and afraid and sad and destroyed. Even the devil pours out his folly on who he is through cartoons, through movies, through whatever. And I'm convinced that for every little sin and every commandment, the world's already pouring out its folly. It just needs to be seen where and how. Like everywhere with everything. But this is where it'll cause divisions, where people get into groups and attack. But if you look at it as a whole, you start seeing that people actually expose themselves and hate themselves. That's what confusion is. It doesn't make sense. You hate yourself. You hate evil coming to you. You hate good coming to you. That's confusion. Real works of love comes to someone and they attack it. They go crazy. Or if someone does them evil, they hate that and want a revenge. They hate everything. Which one is it? Neither. But then you pretend to like one. That's all lies and confusion. Or you pretend to like one thing sometimes, but then in other situations, you change it and pretend not to like it. He moves around like that in his mind and heart, like the waters move. He never solid. Never like a tree that's planted, doesn't move. Here it is. Can't move it. Doesn't change like that. What you see is what you get. It's always a tree. It's always the same. Branches and root and stump. It's a true foundational, and then it grows out of that good truth, and then it is that truth constantly and not moving all the time. And the harlot sits on many waters. Once we start seeing some prophecy in Revelation, it's actually mind-numbing how crazy accurate and perfect and how it's working all the time. The natural man thinks we're talking about nothing. It's not, that's where we come from. It is nothing in the beginning. Then the carnal things die, and now we're talking about something so big and grand. It's impressive. It's astonishing. what it means is crazy. It's happening everywhere. It has to do with what the heart is actually literally doing everywhere in unbelief, in the harlot, everywhere. Working, this prophecy's working like incredibly perfect. It's perfect. Not to those that hate the Creator. No, not to them. They're not seeing yet. I don't know how much there is to see, but the more I see that He gives over the years, the more we line up with His word and see how it's true, the crazier it gets. We could start seeing sin better, real sin, and start seeing that man really, literally doesn't know, and that we didn't know because we're learning what we didn't know. It should be simple enough. If we're learning what we didn't know, then we didn't know either. We could never see the death that always was. You start coming more alive, you can start seeing whatever that death is that we read about in Scripture. The wages of sin is death, and that unbelief, that death, you start seeing that people are dead. We never saw it because we were dead. For those that are alive, we were dead. It takes a few years to start seeing it pretty good, start seeing it more, better. A baby doesn't know anything when it's born and doesn't know what death is, even though it's alive and now it needs to grow. It has eyes now, it has ears, but that doesn't comprehend what it's seeing or hearing. Neither does a young believer. Can't comprehend or see or hear from the Father the way it needs to. It's the truth. I would think someone would find this amazing, that's true. Just amazing that that's true in contrast to what the world's always done and what it truly believes in the heart. As someone grows, they can hear from the Father better and start understanding a little bit, just like a baby grows up and starts understanding what the parents are saying. It's the truth. So then you can kill a baby pretty easily. You can drop it. Yes, we can actually do that. He allows this ability to do this. Because real love is real. Real things are real. It means you can really do it. It means that there's consequence for it, for real. It's not a joke. That's what the love the Father gives for the heart, to actually care for real. It's concerned for real. And this grows for real. But in darkness, there's nothing to worry about, because if we're, in death, there's no living. There's nothing to worry about for good or living. It's just death. So then it's death continually. Works of death. Does evil to people whenever someone gets them angry, evil's done, murder's done, hate, lying is done. It doesn't care. It's hurting himself. The judgment's on them, but he doesn't believe the judgment's on him or her. Doesn't truly believe that. Plays weird games, makes up things to make it look like it's like they always have some alternative meaning and natural reason for everything instead of the truth and why things happen. Today for me is just a Sabbath day. I don't know if that's for someone else, but everyone has to do what, seek the Creator on what's right and true themselves. They have to have the confidence themselves, and the timing has to be right too. If you tell someone to do something and they're not able or ready to, it's going to offend them and kill them. It's only going to hurt them. That takes some time to understand. You have to fail and see the negative results of what I just said for anybody, on how it hurts people and what they constantly do, putting yokes and bondage on people. But we're not talking about literal ball and chain, but it is something like that, though. Once that natural picture is seen, it's pretty evil, pretty bad. You could try to say to someone, this is what you're doing, and they won't. It's so monstrous when you give them the natural picture that someone can understand. You're going to be evil, telling the truth. That's what we truly see. You're putting like 50-pound weights, 500-pound weights on someone, putting a ball and chain on them. They're going to say you're wicked. No, we don't do that. That's evil. That's what the mankind will do in darkness. He never does the actual evil that we're learning not to do. He doesn't lie, doesn't cheat, steal, rob. He doesn't commit adultery, doesn't do anything, doesn't worship the creation and not the creator, as Israel's warned not to do, as all the nations do. They're stargate, what's the word? They're dismayed by the signs and by the heavens. This doesn't mean not to hate the creation. I don't read that anywhere. It just means that to worship the creator and not the creation. The difference between these two things is in the heart. Someone just says, no, I don't do that. That's it. It's over. Okay. But we know what path that leads to continually. When we see something that's true and someone just will say it's not, even though it's like, I don't even do that anymore. It's like, you can't go and correct an unbeliever. You don't go and say, this is what you're doing wrong. You need to stop. It doesn't work. Because we read not to do that, the Father won't make sure it doesn't work. He'll judge it. If we do whatever the wrong thing is, it's going to backfire on us and we'll do evil, and it's going to cause wrath. It's going to cause some kind of slip up or sin on our part for doing it. So then we go, oh, I can't do that. Not unless I want death and punishment, judgment. And people are looking for trouble, destruction, sniffing for it. When we start backing off of doing this, we realize that's all we did. We start being at peace and doing whatever is right. You can see this, but now you start seeing it, and then you see it better. You start seeing that that's what's going on for real. That people start things, they want to start it, but then they always pretend that they don't start it. It's always someone else that started it. So consistent. An easy picture is like nobody ever commits fouls in sports, ever. They never commit the foul, ever, unless it's incredibly obvious. And even they can't deny it because they know that the crowd sees it's obvious. Then they can go along and say, yes, I did it. Because if they don't do that now, their image will look bad. That's why they did the so-called good thing. They don't even do the good for a good reason. They never do good. That's why I say the Father's shown me that an unbeliever never tells the truth. Even when he tells the truth, he's lying, because he only told the truth with all the conditions right in its mind to benefit its image. If it did not benefit the image for real, it never tells the truth. That proves that it never tells the truth. Therefore, the truth and the lie look the same. They're identical, just as convincing from the same person. There's no difference. It's just as convincing when it's telling the truth on something or lying. There's no difference. And I read the tree of knowledge and good and evil. They're one. They're the same. That's who man is first. There's no difference between all good and all evil. No difference between lies. No difference between anything. Spiritual things for real, not what people look like. But now we have access to the tree of life through belief, through faith in Messiah. Because now there was a way made to die without literally dying, and then we would be dead. To die spiritually for real to the old man so we can live, and he guards the tree of, he doesn't allow, we have to die to that old man, have to be considered and reckoned dead. He doesn't allow this death to just go right through, doesn't allow corruption. But there was no way before Messiah. So then if he ate the tree of life, he would literally live forever, and that's it. But his heart would be corrupt. Father would make corruption and sin and wickedness and death, spiritual death, for a sinful heart that always was. That death reigned since forever, from the beginning to Messiah, and still does in unbelief today. Whoever doesn't believe, it would reign forever. He would make death eternal or everlasting. And the Father doesn't do that because he has a heart, because he cares, because he doesn't allow evil to stand. He judges it. destroys it, and he will pursue wickedness until there is none. The Father says so. How does that work with evil continuing forever, literally? How is that makes the Father a liar? Yes, that's a devil's doctrine then. The Father will pursue wickedness until there is none. He's on the pursuit for wickedness. And the Grim Reaper, the cartoons and stuff, there's truth to it. He makes death, darkness chase a darkened man that's in rebellion. Darkness chases him. We could read it. And the sun goes down on the prophets, meaning it goes into darkness, and their prophecies fail. And it's an astonishing and a hissing. And in their heart, they say, how come no one hears? How come he doesn't hear me? But they never tell the people. That's what their heart believes. Oh, no, they don't. Believe the Father's word, even if it's not understood. That's what someone's actually doing, because they're in destruction and death. They go, I can't believe it. How come it's not working? How come he doesn't hear me? How come? Because you want to stay alive, because they don't want to deny themselves and repent. They want to do anything but denying their soul, their life, which requires death. And that's the last thing someone would want to do. It's frightening that no one can repent without the Father's mercy, for real. Couldn't do it myself. Now I know that's not what they want to hear. They have to attack this in religion, because if this is true, they're exposed and condemned instantly. So they have to attack it. They don't have a choice. They can't. I must be lying. Someone else must be lying that knows this to be true about themselves. They'll just say you're lying, and you have to be lying. They can't do anything else. That's spiritual prophecy. That's what they will do in their heart. They cannot do anything else. They can't believe this. They can't prophesy. Spiritual prophecy is something like natural prophecy, where the similarity is that you say or do something before it happens, or someone hears something and that's what was on their mind. That's prophecy, without you knowing, without you hearing them say that. That's the real prophecy for today. The heart. The Father gives us this to do this. It's a gift. And we don't even know. That's what blowing with the wind, you'll just end up doing whatever the real thing is. You don't know. You're not trying to do something. That's what false prophets do. They have to try to make it look like they are real, because there's no actual faith. There's no hearing from. There's nothing. It's hard. That's all I could say. I mean, it's that bad. When we just walk in the Spirit, you'll end up prophesying to somebody without even knowing it. Read their mind, see their mind without them even knowing. That's it. It's the Father's work right there through the people. It's not our work from ourselves. Nevertheless, the person does do it. That's how you would talk. You would say the person did this, he prophesied, knowing that it's through the Father, from him, through the person, not coming from self. Self has no such power. If we obey, then we will be given the Father's power, but it's not ours. That's the truth. Constantly gives us things, signs, things, little things here and there, or with other people, going back and forth, seeing amazing things. But the world doesn't, it's stupid to them, because we're talking about things we see that are very real and powerful. But they don't see them, because they're looking for like the Red Sea to get literally split. Now, I've seen things move and disappear. I've seen things get pushed off my bed literally, but that's not what my heart's seeking. And it just happens to be the Father's shown a little bit of some of this for me, for myself, that he can easily do that. But the intention can't be corrupt. Intention's got to want to do his will, and then the good thing comes. We don't do something that's backwards. For I will do this if you do this thing right here. Please do this here. Then we do. That's the backwards thing. Too many things to speak on what happened, because it's hard to even talk. It's hard to even bring them up. The spiritual things, the higher heavenly things, many, many things like this happen, but I've seen a little bit of natural things that shouldn't happen naturally. I didn't want to see them. I didn't seek to see them, and I saw them. It's funny because years and years ago, like when I was 18 going 19, automotive school after high school in Arizona with some friend. I had this idea, like, should I repent? And I had no clue what I was saying or doing. And then it like went away. It was a weird moment. But it was like 7 years later that I actually believed from that time. But I had that weird moment, like maybe I should repent. But like I didn't know what it was. I just had like kind of like a little religious understanding from being brought up in the church world, you know. But I remember seeing something and I thought something happened, but it didn't. I was like hoping to see like a literal miracle. I just remembered that a long time ago. It's funny how things work later. Well, I guess I saw enough. How many times do we need to see something, you know, until we believe it? That's what, you know, the weak faith in the beginning, it sees things and then it is as if it never happened. We doubt it. And we read the disciples, you know, they're the example of how it's going to be, period. It's going to start out weak, small, but the faith of a real mustard seed sprouting is real faith, even though it's so small compared to no seed sprouting, fake faith, everything religious and fake, all things fake, and without actual true belief. That little mustard seed moves mountains already, in contrast to the nothingness. What can it do when it gets a little bigger? What will the Father do when it gets a little bigger? If it can move mountains as this tiny little seed, that's a real faith starting to sprout in someone. Life comes from within. The Father gives us life within his spirit, in the temple, within the temple. So then it's the invisible things to the carnal man. It's the inwardly, the heart, spirit, life within. A life that the unbeliever is in death too. That's the death we speak of. Not literal death. Speaking of the spiritual death. Unbelief, darkened inside. And until that seed sprouts, you know, it's not, there's just not, it has no ability to truly believe. Belief is not saying I believe in God. That's that all by itself. That's not belief. That's just saying that you believe what you say. It could be someone believes in the Creator. Yes, if it's true, then it's good. But many say they believe in the Creator, God, and they don't believe in the true Creator. But they'll defend it bitterly because what they come from, what they're speaking of, is real. Just like someone building their golden calf, and they say, "Here it is. I built it. I believe in it." What do you mean I don't believe in it? Yeah, that's the delusion. They do believe in the delusion. We're talking about real belief in the real Creator, that he actually exists for real, and that there's things to come. That's the belief. That's the real faith, but they'll say so. All the Pharisees said so. All of them. All religious people in Jerusalem back then said so. They believed. And they killed Messiah. That's how much they believed. They killed the Son of the Creator, full of the Father's Spirit. They killed what they said they believed in. They spiritually kill the Father by killing Messiah. So then those that kill his people kill Messiah, which kills the Father. And we're not speaking of literally killing him. This is a big, massive sin to touch one of his peoples, to do it to Messiah the same way. That's how connected they are in spirit. It's like touching a kid. There's the natural picture for the stupid religion that thinks we're talking about like literally killing or something like this. Someone touches someone's baby and the mom goes crazy because you just touched her. Hello, that's what we're talking about. Messiah, the body, the Father, Messiah, and the body are one. To touch his people and try to get him to spiritually commit sin is to touch Messiah, is to touch the Father, just to touch and poke his eye, the apple of his eye, like we read. Israel, his people. So then this is the heavenly thing. This is the perfect thing. That's the lower thing with mom and kid. If it's bad with that, how much greater the perfect thing? It's a strong judgment. We'd rather not see them do it, but you can't stop it. They do it. It's the same ignorance over and over again. It's like every generation, no one learns. They have to go through Cain. They have to go through sin and death and find out how bad it is. They have to go and be a wanderer and a vagabond. Call me what you will, and sing about it and praise it. Something the Father's showing me more deeper lately is that they praise the evil while they make it sound like they expose a conspiracy or evil government, alien people. They actually praise the death that they sing about. Yes, they do, because their works prove it. Their works prove it. They do evil continually, and they'll do evil to a believer instantly. They can't stand next to light, Father's light. They do praise the evil. That's how much of a delusion we have to come out of. And once we start seeing something for what it is, and then seeing the effect it has on us, then it's like, oh, I should obey. I should stop doing this or that. Then you ask because you can't do it yourself. Because you can't do it yourself, whatever it is someone's learning not to do or do, can't do it in the beginning. Then slip up, mess up, get better, slip up, mess up, get better. That's how bad it is for us. You need the Creator's power, or else we won't be able to overcome the sin. I start seeing that just what you look at for a few seconds, when that really comes to revelation in someone, it's completely different than saying the right words in religion. Talking about actual revelation and sight on how it damages someone and tries to get you to sin, then you start coming in more agreement with the truth, which will hopefully lead someone to pray about not doing whatever's trying to damage, kill them. Look what the world is, though. It's perfectly backwards, and it's so bad. It's a lot to come out of, but he could do the works. He does it. But look how bad it is. They want it as fake as possible. Talking to robots, as if it's real. Staring at screens for hours and hours and talking to robots, and everything's going in that direction. They hate the devil, man, just hates the creation, hates everything that's good and true, and just needs it to be perfectly backwards. If money is literally naturally valuable things, gold, stone, silver, rare things, and it's something you can see and touch, then it needs to be digital. It needs to be invisible, and it just someone presses a button, ends your life. So it's the direction it needs to go, the perfectly backwards thing. If not being in debt is the true no debt to man, and what this means spiritually, not just naturally, then it wants everyone to be in debt. It loves debt. It loves for you to owe someone something and pay them in payments. Yes, it does. Watch it. Watch for it. Look and see how much your buddies, our old buddies, would love you to pay them back in small amounts. How come they love that so much? And when you say, no, I'm paying now, or I'm not going in debt, they don't like it so much. That's what I've seen. They don't like it. They don't like the good thing. They don't like you not owing them. I can't speak for where someone else is. This is what I've seen, but I believe they will see the same things because they're not learning and growing. They don't know what freely giving is. It means there's zero connections, there's zero attachments, there's zero corrupt intentions and motives, zero. They can't freely give. They have to give out of corruption. It's a bribe every time to believe something about them, to get you to like them. For some weird, strange reason, someone should ask why. Why do you want me? Why do they want you to like them so bad? If they were light and truth, you would never have to do that. Do you like me or do you not? I don't care either way. But why would someone need someone to like them so bad? I wonder why. It's only corruption connected to it. So Messiah is not needing anyone to love him. Everyone's hating him. Everyone killed him. They're killing his people. Did he do evil? No. It's just that darkness is so perfectly backwards. They put their evil on Messiah, and then Messiah does evil. He breaks the Sabbath. He breaks the law. He changes the customs. He's a sinner. And he even claims to be God because he calls himself son of Elohim. What a blaspheming, prideful man. You know, to claim someone's claiming to be God is to say that they're incredibly prideful. That's what they think of Messiah. Incredibly prideful to the heavens, because that's what they are. That's the truth. Can't do that to light without being what someone claims light is. Can't do that. It bounces back, and they are what they claim, to light, to good works, to truth, to humble, not prideful. But Messiah speaks out of knowing all the time. And he's humble. The only way to know is through humble. So it's always prideful to people that don't know when he says what he sees. It's incredibly prideful because the blind don't actually see. They're just playing games and guessing and trying to create a good image all the time. They don't actually know what they see. For sin and intentions and everything, you know, the true spiritual things must come from above. It's just good to know this, that it's going to be always looking evil. If someone wants to be Elohimly in Messiah, you know, get ready for looking evil and a lot of tribulation also, like we read will happen. They will liken tribulation for doing good to people just doing evil because you're doing evil. That's what they'll do. They'll just connect it to what they know only, that you do evil. And then evil comes back to you because that's what they do. That's all they know. They don't see the good thing. They're not doing good works to receive evil coming back for doing. There's nothing for the devil to come and attack on someone that's utterly blind and lost. You want to try to do what's right. You want to do the Father's will and break through whatever the sin is and start doing what's right. The resistance will be there to break through. It'll be there already. Watch the resistance be there. See how hard it is to break through first on something new. Or even keeping his days with the right intention. Look how hard it is to break through for someone that actually wants to do it out of truth, out of true intentions for good and nothing else. That's what I've seen. Heavy resistance. Severe resistance. I locked my car out 2 times within a few days, right before a certain day, Day of Atonement, that right as evening starting, right as I'm like done, boom, I come back and my car's locked out. Test the patience. That happened like not too long ago, when I had my little car still working that job. And then the next thing was like only shortly after, a week later to one, I think only a week, Tabernacles, the first day starting, right before, boom, I lock my car out again. I'm like, it's like, it started making me go nuts a little bit. I had to like realize what was happening. Like, what is this? Why did I do that? How did I get so blinded? What is this, an attack? Maybe it's because that the enemy doesn't want you going in the direction you're spiritually going at all. You have to like break through it. stop committing adultery in the heart. For its beginning, everything is like met with the resistance in the beginning, and then it doesn't mean it's not gonna be tempting later. It's not to say that it won't tempt later. It's just like extra crazy in the beginning. If you're really doing it. If you're not, then this doesn't apply. This doesn't apply in unbelief and darkness. It's never overcoming adultery and lying and envy. Honoring father and mother. It thinks it does that. Lying to your parents all the time is not honoring them, ever. Telling them the truth, if questions are asked, is honoring them, which will make them hate you. That's what honoring your parents is. Telling them the truth, always. Doing good to them, not wishing evil, not trying to do them evil, and telling them the truth. That's honoring father and mother. Lying to them is not honoring them. I guess just try to bring out one thing, like how it so easily could said, yeah, I do this, I keep this perfectly. Okay, it hasn't been that easy for me. I don't know what someone else is thinking. They could just, I keep them done. Never seen it like that with anything. Start keeping something for real, it's difficult. It takes a lot of time. You don't build up your muscles because you bench press one time. Now you can bench press 500 from 50 pounds to 500 in one day. I don't think so. So then that picture is something like flexing the spiritual muscles, like the apostle talks about. If you never use them, then they're just nothing, weak. Can't overcome any actual sin. It takes actual spiritual muscle to overcome real sin, spiritual sin and wicked sin in the heart. Breaking of his laws in the heart takes muscle, takes strength. The Father gives the strength. Strong or weak, the weak or strong. That's why, the bigger you get carnally, and big, strong, buff is just making up for all the incredible spiritual, actual, real weakness inside. How do you do that without pride, without wanting people to stare at you all the time, which is wanting worship for people? The buff man's not going to agree that that's wanting worship, that's wicked. That's good. That's why he's doing it. So he gets the worship. It's good. Spiritual worship is good. Attention is very good. Get as much as you can to look and think about you as you can. That's spiritual worship. Through evil and darkness. That's not evil to him. That's why he does it. It's what he's doing it for. How could his life and what he does be evil? He's never going to acknowledge it's evil. That would be to condemn self. That would be to forfeit self and say, I'm wicked. No. Saves his soul. He's going to fight it. Show how strong he is too. When you walk away from evil, then they'll call you cowards and wicked and other names because they want you to fight them, because they're witnessing strength. They're not able to do that. They have to go and prove how strong they are, how weak they are. They have to prove how weak they are. That's all I see anymore. I don't see anything else. I don't see what the carnal man and what I used to see. Someone goes and needs to fight and they get all irritated, and I'm going to show you how strong, and I'm going to show you I'm not a coward. All I see literally is how he's proving how weak he is. That's it. That's all I see. That's abomination. Can't watch that. That's sick. I don't like that. That's evil. Just wrath connected with it too. Look at them. They're in wrath. Can't do those works without wrath inside. The wrath of the devil. Woe to the earth. The devils come down to you, carnal men. But the believers dwell in the heavens because their spirit is from above. Rejoice, O heavens, in Revelation. Rejoice, O heavens. They're from the peoples from above. Messiah is an example. He said, I'm from above, you're from beneath. They didn't understand what that means. He was on the earth when he said it. Was he lying? He was from above because the Father is from above, because he has the Father's Spirit, and his mind is on heavenly things from above, spiritual heavenly things, not of this world. The way this world works has nothing to do with the Father at all. All the sin and lust of it. That's why it's going to have to fade away someday and disappear, because that's not who the Father is. So then, like, it's pretty dumb to build a foundation that's going to disappear and collect a bunch of trophies that are going to be as if they never existed. I mean, think about that reality a little bit, but the carnal man's so blindsided, he can't see one thing in front of him. That's why it's in darkness, can't see anything in front. Nope, today. I want to be a god today, trophies today. Yeah, but they're death now, and it's going to be shame and disappear in the future. That's the truth. It's what we read. It's what I see and believe. Father's given to see and believe. A crown that melts with fervent heat and fades away as if it never existed. It's pretty shameful to be prideful in something that disappears. I mean, it is pretty foolish. But obviously we didn't know. But, you know, we can speak like that when we know. It's pretty foolish now. This is pretty dumb. Whatever we build will not be in vain. We read, it'll continue. It'll stand to come. It's pretty valuable. And everything else will fall as if it never existed. What good will all that pride be? It'll come to nothing. And the main thing is that it's death right now. It's death today. It's death tomorrow. It's death 5 days from now. Unbelief and pride and all this stuff is worldly things. It's death. But everyone has to start somewhere, because a tree doesn't become a tree in one day. It's like, what do I do? Where do I go? They have a place for everyone to go and what to do in religion. You know, they took care of all that so that you don't have to do the Father's will, so that you don't walk with him wherever you go, all by yourself most of the time. Never by yourself in spirit, with the Father, Messiah, and other believers. Even knowing their thoughts from miles away, so many times he gives prophecy. It's a little strange. Or sensing something not right, the ups and downs of life. This is how the body's like all one. If one's hurt, then everyone's hurt. If one's lifted up, then everyone else is getting lifted up. Fake love doesn't do that. It doesn't care about anything. It doesn't go up and down like this. It doesn't care. And notice how often, look at the so-called good works people do in the world and see if they didn't try to do it for attention, so that everyone says, look at what I did and how good I am, or look at my dad, how good he was. He needs attention for this. And they just shot themselves in the foot. They just destroyed it. It's definitely not going to be a blessing now, for sure. It's going to be a curse. That instant fame and gratification sucks them in like I don't know, a strong vacuum. It thinks it's going to be so good for it, and it's actually death. If they would do it in secret, whatever good work, and do it while no one's around, or no one, not doing it for others to see for that intention, then you would be blessed. When carnal man least expects it, that's when he's blessed. These people that have power in this world, they got more secrets than the average person, because the more bigger, powerful, worldly someone gets, the more lies that they have. Their whole life is literally lies. It's frightening what the Father shows me at times, where it's like deeper, like literally believing in their literal lies and their image, and a slave to it. Whatever image they created, they have to continue in that image. It's pretty frightening. It's a serious slavery to your own self. And you have to do it because the love for the image and self is increasing. It's more of a God. It loves itself more at its end than in the beginning, instead of dying more, instead of going in the other direction. It's frightening. And everybody that speaks and makes comments on YouTube about the images, that's what they're talking about. The person is dead. That's just an image. It's just an act more severe and bigger than the average person that's not an actor. Just even worse. It like grows worse. It's even more fake. It's even more of a delusion. Why would someone want that slavery, man? For what? Okay, you got 20 mansions now. These people are in destruction, man, for those 20 mansions, for all that fame. These people are on drugs continually. They're going out of their mind. They're slaves to sin, even if the Father's merciful, and some of them maybe aren't, probably not many. That's like a gift. They're still in destruction. It doesn't matter. You can't do that much sin every day and not be in debt. No love. Only loving those that love it. And I'll do good to those that do good to me, right? That is literally the devil right there. That's the devil, to do good to those that do good to you. Wow, that takes a lot of power. And I'll hate those who hate me, says the beast. How about love those that hate you? That's 180. That takes power. No one does it. Not of self. Not without the Father's Spirit and power. Love neighbor as yourself. It's not being done. Every work that's being done, it should be contrasted with, was that loving neighbor as self? And we'll find out it's just a giant hypocrisy. It never is that. And it's easy to forget that too. Those simple words are powerful, connected to literally everything. We'll find out it breaks that constantly, all the time, never thinks about that. But when it thinks of in a religious way, then it smiles and thinks it's wise and says, I agree on these words. And then it goes and breaks it the rest of the day with the heart for real. While it just said it agrees with this and believes it. No, it doesn't. But God says, I believe it. I just said I did. Hello. That's how prideful it is. We're saying the works prove you don't believe it. That's the only proof. Saying you believe it is stupid when you never do it. Never do it. Never keep it. Never want to keep it. That's a lie. That's why people run away, because they can't hear true words. They have to. Most of them have to run away. We don't want that to happen. We don't need to want that to happen. It just will, because the Father won't break his word. Many will not believe. It's the truth. Many will not believe. If they hear true words and truth, they'll run away and go away. It stings. The Spirit discerns the thoughts and the hearts of men, and it's sharper than any two-edged sword. It's something like a sharp sword, and it divides and cuts between bone and marrow, flesh and spirit, and divides it. It's painful. And so then when they hear true words that's spoken of through the Father's Spirit, the light hits them, his word hits them, it hits their spirit, it discerns their thoughts and hearts, literally. This is what they do and why they do it. And it gets angry and it goes away. That's what spiritual discernment is, discerning the thoughts and hearts of men. I think that's all I have. I didn't really mean to get my stupid little vacuum in here, but whatever, it's a little vacuum. I think I did say it sucked in like a vacuum at some point without realizing that it was right there. But they'll just say, don't judge me, you're judging. Right, because judgment is evil. It's because rightly judging, and what that means is evil to darkness. Because they don't do that. Everything is a one. Everything is okay. All is good. That's why it's always said, all is good, bro. All is good. No, it's not. It's not good at all. Nothing's good. The Father's good. Nothing's good on earth. Nothing's good from below. So let it be. So it is. Sad but true. And it's amazing how consistent it is. If someone loves the Father's truth and they're learning his truth, wanting to do his works, darkness has to believe that the only reason you're speaking is to do damage and hurt people and destroy them. That's it. And it's doing it out of pride and all of these things. It has to believe that. We have to not be doing that. But I'm speaking of what it will always believe. When good comes its way, it has to believe it's doing evil. It's never done anything else. It literally has no discernment. And they're spiritually discerned by those that can see that they have no discernment. Zero. I think that's all I had for this. It's funny, like that phrase, though, that comes to mind, spiritually discerned. Oh, well, to spiritually discern is to see what we need to see and see why something's done for the thoughts and intentions of the heart. But like, notice how like the world takes that when they say spiritually discerned, they think it's talking about how blind is that? They read that spiritually discerned as if the person has that they can't even get this simple thing right. They're spiritually discerned by those that see. Yes, that they have no discernment, but spiritually discerned is not an evil thing. It doesn't mean someone doesn't have discernment. It means someone is discerning someone else. They are spiritually discerned by those that see. And then it would be true after that, that spiritually discerned whether someone has discernment or not naturally discerned, not with the physical eyes discerned. All right, that's all I had, I guess. Please take care, seek truth from above always.